Hey, friends! I've noticed a weird little subgenre of mystery movies, which I've tripped across and I wanted to share with you. Now, there was an old adage in the newspaper game, back when newspapers were still a thing, that said when a columnist ran out of ideas for his column, he would invariably write a column about writing a column. It was such a cliche that columnists desperately tried to avoid doing it because it would clue everyone in, at least in the newspaper business, into the fact that they had run out of ideas that week. So here, we have something similar in the movies. It's always interesting when Hollywood turns the camera around and looks at itself in films like A Star is Born or The Oscar, or even the last act of Holiday Inn. But this time we're talking about a specific genre of movies, the mystery movie. And more specifically, this weird subgenre. Mystery movies about a murder that takes place on a movie set. So, just like the newspaper columnist writing a column about writing a column, here we see the studio scenario writers running out of ideas for a new mystery movie. This subgenre, by the way, is adjacent to a similar mystery subgenre, namely murders committed during a theatrical stage production, either backstage or right on stage, right in front of the entire audience. Anyway, we're taking a look at a series of these mystery movies that feature a murder happening right on the movie set. There's way more of these than you might think, and I have no doubt I missed a few, so let me know down there in the comments. First up, we have The Studio Murder Mystery from 1929. In this one, an actor is killed, his body found on the set of his latest picture. He was a philanderer and an unfaithful husband, and he had his share of enemies. An angry husband, the actor's wife, and the actor's new girlfriend. Maybe even more. But who croaked the guy? Warner Oland is here. He was famous for playing Charlie Chan in several pictures, among many other things that he did. We also have Frederick March as the philanderer who gets bumped off. Commissioner Gordon, Neil Hamilton, plays a writer sweet on the actor's new girlfriend, and he sets out to solve the mystery. Chester Conklin is a studio security guard. He later had roles in at least 2 Charlie Chaplin films, Modern Times and The Great Dictator. Misha Auer appears as a secretary to the studio head, and finally, we have the definitive Friar Tuck himself, Eugene Pallette, as a police detective. It's a hoot to watch Commissioner Gordon and Friar Tuck razzing one another throughout the picture. This was a Paramount Pictures production, and they redressed the famous entrance gate in front of the studio to use as the fictitious movie studio's lot. Then there's The Studio Murder Mystery from 1932. This is a different one, and it's not a full-length picture, but a 19-minute short. Here, a victim is killed during a scene by a guy with a knife. The knife was supposed to be fake, but the killer replaced the actor who should have been in the bad guy's costume, and he kills the victim. This one is fun as it has Perry White, John Hamilton, who played Perry on the Adventures of Superman TV series. He plays the gruff detective in charge of the case here. The other big name, relatively speaking, is familiar character actor Donald Meek playing Dr. Crabtree. This was one of 11 shorts starring Meek as the crime-solving doctor. Even though this movie is only 19 minutes long and shot with economy, it's still packed with detail, and the characters are good, so you leave kinda wishing it had a longer running time so you could enjoy more of it. Then there was The Crime of Helen Stanley from 1934. Only Helen Stanley isn't the criminal. She's the victim. Helen Stanley, who's an unlikable biatch, gets shot during a scene where her character in the movie is supposed to be killed by a gangster. The guy playing the gangster is her former husband, who has an axe to grind. Yeah, he doesn't look suspicious. But is he the killer? This one stars Ralph Bellamy and Gail Patrick. Remember that name, Gail Patrick. She was the victim here, so she gets dispatched in the first act. Ward Bond is on hand as well. We also have this guy, the camera operator, and one of the suspects, played by Kane Richmond. He went on to star in movie serials. He was in The Lost City, Rick Bradford, based on the comic strip character, and Jungle Raiders, but his biggest claim to fame was playing Spy Smasher, one of the most action-packed serials ever made. I mean, seriously, you've got to see that thing. The crime of Helen Stanley, who, again, was the victim, was the third entry in a series of 4 films starring Ralph Bellamy as Inspector Steve Trent. Now, the cameraman's love interest was played by Shirley Gray. She was in 3 of those movies. Naturally, you'd think she was a running love interest for Bellamy, but no. She plays a different character in each of the pictures. There are some cool things here, such as how the lighting guy calls each lamp out by number as the lighting crew lights the set. It's one of those little things that adds authenticity to this movie. And we also see this. This is the camera, which is housed in this big box. See, this was still fairly early in the sound era, and the cameras made a lot of noise. The solution was to encase the camera in a sound-dampening box, and we get to see that in the movie, and you see the cameraman ducking inside, which is kind of interesting. And we see how guns are handled on set. The prop guy handing a weapon to the assistant director, who we see checking the weapon, then personally loading it with blanks, then handing it to the actor. So there were some safety rules. We also see this ex-husband replacing a blank with a live round. After Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee, was killed by a gun accident while filming The Crow, modern weapons were altered. Now they're rigged so as not to allow a real bullet to fit in them. That's why what happened on Rust, the Alec Baldwin picture, was such an outrage, as a real bullet shouldn't have been within a light year of a movie set. But the armorer was a diversity hire, and you get what you pay for there. Her experience to be an armorer was pretty much limited to not being a man. Pretty much. So they hired her, and that resulted in a tragedy when a gun with a real bullet in it found its way onto the set, and some people got hurt. Anyway, I did like The Crime of Helen Stanley. It's really pretty good. And what about the preview murder mystery from 1936? Now, technically, the first murder happens at a movie screening, a preview, but there are other murders, and one happens on the movie set, so it counts. Here, a mysterious killer is leaving typewritten notes threatening his victims and then taking them out. One cool scene shows a horror movie being shot on one of the sound stages with a suitably creepy vampire type, only it turns out he's a big scaredy cat, what with all the murders going on. Gail Patrick is back for this one. She plays a movie star and potential target for the killer. And we also have Reginald Denny as a promotions man trying to solve the case. Chester Conklin is also back. This time he cameos as a vaudeville comedian. And if you look fast, you'll see a walk-on cameo by comedic actor Charles Ruggles at the movie premiere. This one is all right. Denny is doing his best impersonation of the Thin Man, or trying to. It's a pretty good yarn and amiable. But probably the best of these was The Death Kiss from 1932. It's pretty much the same story. An actor is gunned down during production of a movie, in a scene where his character is bumped off in a shooting. Someone on the set used a real bullet. But who? It's the cast that steals the show here, with 3 stars of the previous year's success, Dracula. Bela Lugosi plays a studio executive and suspect, Edward Van Sloan plays the movie's director, and David Manners, Mina's love interest in Dracula, plays a writer and the boyfriend of the starlet being set up for the crime. He investigates on her behalf. He's quite good here. Manners had that boyish, likable, clean-cut, stalwart kind of thing going on. John Ray plays a detective. He starred in several classic films, including All Quiet on the Western Front, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and one of my favorites, the 2-strip Technicolor horror movie, Dr. X. We also have comedic actor Vince Barnett as a studio watchman, a very familiar face. He was in tons of stuff in his long-running career, including 1932's Scarface, My Favorite Spy, Bowery at Midnight, also with Bela Lugosi, Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, Six Pack Annie, and on and on and on. The Death Kiss was the directorial debut of Edwin L. Martin, who went on to direct the 1938 version of A Christmas Carol, starring Reginald Owen. He also directed several westerns, including one we've looked at before, Tall in the Saddle, starring John Wayne. In kind of a throwback to the silent era, there are a few sequences where a hand-painted tint was applied to some of the lights and muzzle flashes. Kind of interesting. Why they chose to do this, I don't know, but adding the tints, few as they are, delayed the release of the picture. So yes, you can find The Death Kiss for free on YouTube or Amazon Prime or whatever, but those are all public domain, chopped up raggedy prints. Not worth the effort to watch. The real way to watch this is this nice Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. They restored the print and the color tints and the missing bits and everything, and cleaned up the image, doing their usual good job of restoration. It's the best way to watch the film. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if shows like Murder, She Wrote, or Matlock had at one time or another featured a murder mystery happening during the production of a TV show or a movie. I can't point to them, but I have no doubt those episodes exist. Why? Because both shows ran forever, and coming up with fresh new ideas for a long-running crime show isn't easy. So, in and of itself, it isn't new for a show to go there, but one long-running crime show deliberately went there. In fact, it's the best iteration of this type of story on television, and it was planned as the penultimate finale of the series. It was in the final episode of Perry Mason, which closed out the series' 9-year run. The episode was called The Case of the Final Fadeout, and featured a murder happening during the production of a TV show. Police Detective Oscar Goldman here goes around and questions everyone who was on the set when the murder took place. The cool thing here is that all of the crew members they talked to were the actual crew members from the Perry Mason show, so they got to introduce themselves and describe the job they did, all on camera. Even Perry Mason creator, author Earl Stanley Gardner, got in on the action and played a judge. Really a super cool way to thank the crew and to celebrate the series. So, who was the killer? Was it Uncle Jesse? Was it Uncle Fester? Was it Dick Clark? Was it Estelle Winwood, who was over 80 when she made this and kept on acting until she was over 101? Was it Gail Patrick, yet again? The former movie star turned producer on the Perry Mason show. Was it Perry's secretary, Della Street? Was it Della Street wearing this blonde wig and dark glasses because that is literally the same actress, Barbara Hale, playing another character? Was it Oscar Goldman? Was it Perry Mason? You'll have to watch the episode to find out. So, how about it? Do you know of any more of these movies in this weird little murder mystery subgenre of murders on the movie set? Let me know down there in the comments there. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.